In the year 1925, beneath the bandages of a boy pharaoh's mummy, archaeologists discovered an object that should not have existed. A dagger, perfectly preserved, with a golden hilt and a blade untouched by rust for 3,000 years. But that wasn't the strangest part. 90 years later, scientists directed an X-ray beam at the blade, and what they saw turned our understanding of ancient Egypt upside down. This dagger had been forged from a metal that simply did not exist on Earth at that time. It was made from iron that had fallen from the sky, from a piece of a star, traveling through space for 4.5 billion years, only to become a weapon in the hands of a king. Today, we'll unravel one of the most astonishing mysteries in archaeology. Buckle up, this will be a journey into the depths of history that will change the way you see ancient Egypt forever. To grasp the scale of this discovery, let's go back to November of 1922. The Valley of the Kings, Egypt. British archaeologist Howard Carter has spent 10 years searching for the tomb of a forgotten pharaoh. The expedition is funded by a wealthy aristocrat, Lord Carnarvon, and he is losing patience. Carnarvon delivers an ultimatum: one more season, and that's it. If Carter finds nothing, the funding will end. This was the last chance. On the 4th of November, 1922, a worker accidentally stumbles upon the first step of a stone staircase. The staircase leads to a sealed door. When Carter chips a small hole through it and lifts a candle, Lord Carnarvon, standing impatiently behind him, asks, "Can you see anything?" Carter answers with a phrase that would go down in history: "Yes, I see wonderful things." What he saw exceeded all expectations. Tutankhamun's tomb turned out to be the only royal burial chamber in Egypt that had reached us almost untouched. More than 5,000 artifacts, gold, precious stones, ritual objects, chariots, furniture, clothing, food for the afterlife. The whole world went mad. Newspapers printed front-page reports. Egyptian motifs came into fashion, from jewelry to architecture. A phenomenon was born, which journalists called Tutmania. But sorting through the treasures didn't take a month, or even a year. For 10 years, Carter and his team described, photographed, and extracted every single item. It was only in 1925, the third year after the discovery, that researchers finally reached the most important thing of all, the mummy of the pharaoh. When they began removing the bandages from the body, they discovered something hidden right beneath the layers of linen on the pharaoh's abdomen. 2 daggers, one entirely made of gold, from hilt to blade, the other with an iron blade and a golden hilt. Carter described them in his diary, but didn't attach much significance. For an archaeologist of the 1920s, these were simply beautiful artifacts. He could not have known that one of these daggers would become the greatest mystery of Egyptology in the 21st century. To understand why this is a sensation, you need to grasp one simple but crucial fact. Tutankhamun died around the year 1323 before our era. This was the very height of the Bronze Age. At that time, virtually all tools and weapons in Egypt and the Near East were made of bronze, an alloy of copper and tin. People knew how to extract copper. They knew how to smelt tin. They could cast bronze swords, axes, spear tips. But iron was almost a mythical material. Here's a fact that's hard to comprehend. In the era of Tutankhamun, iron in Egypt was valued more than gold. The Egyptian language had a special term for iron by Ya. Literally, it means metal from the sky. Why from the sky? Because in those times, Egyptians obtained iron from only one source, from meteorites, found by chance in the desert, still warm from impact, all rusted with age. The technology of smelting iron from, or did not exist in Egypt back then. It would be invented by the Hittites, a people living in the territory of modern-day Turkey. only 200 years after the death of Tutankhamun. And iron would become widespread in the region only for centuries later, when the Iron Age began. Now do you see the paradox? A boy pharaoh, ruling at the very peak of the Bronze Age, possessed an iron dagger, and not a crude piece of metal, not a rusted blank, but a perfectly forged weapon. The blade, mirror smooth, without defects. The hilt, made of rock crystal, decorative elements of gold and semi-precious stones. It's the equivalent of finding a working smartphone in the tomb of an ancient king. The technology simply outpaces the era. For 90 years, this paradox remained without explanation. Egyptologists put forward hypotheses, but none could be verified. The museum did not permit any damage to the artifact until, in the year 2016, a group of Italian and Egyptian scientists obtained permission for a unique experiment. The team was led by Daniela Comelli, a physicist from the Polytechnic University of Milan. Her specialty is the study of historical artifacts using methods of modern physics. The task was no easy one. The Cairo Museum strictly forbade any intervention that could damage the dagger. They could not cut off a sample, scratch the blade, or even remove it from its display stand. Comelli proposed a method that solved all the problems: X-ray fluorescence spectrometry. The principle of operation is simple, yet brilliant. The device directs a beam of X-rays at the object. The metal atoms respond by emitting their own secondary radiation, and for each chemical element, this radiation is unique, like a fingerprint. The detector reads this radiation and determines which elements make up the metal, with an accuracy of 0.1%. And all of this, without touching the surface of the dagger. In November of 2016, the study was carried out. The scientists worked for only a few hours, but the result, published in the journal Meteoritics and Planetary Science, shocked the scientific community. The blade of the dagger consisted of iron with an anomalously high nickel content, almost 11%, plus a significant amount of cobalt, about 0.5%. For comparison, in earthly iron ore, nickel content typically does not exceed 4%, and in most cases, less than 1. Earthly iron ore does not contain such proportions. Never. But there is one source where this ratio occurs consistently. Iron meteorites. Once, billions of years ago, planets were forming in our solar system. Some of these protoplanets collided with each other and shattered into pieces. Their iron cores, rich in nickel and cobalt, became asteroids. Some of these asteroids periodically fall to Earth, and it is precisely in them that the ratio of iron, nickel, and cobalt exactly matches the composition of Tutankhamun's dagger. Comelli's team went further. They compared the composition of the blade with a catalogue of meteorites that had fallen within a radius of 2,000 kilometers of Egypt, and they found a match. The Dagger meteorite, discovered in the year 1900 on the Mersa Matruh Plateau near the Mediterranean Sea. The same nickel, about 10%, the same cobalt, the same crystalline structure. Tutankhamun's dagger had been forged from a piece of a star that fell from the sky. For the ancient Egyptians, a falling star was not an astronomical phenomenon. It was a gift from the gods. Around the 1340s before our era, precisely during Tutankhamun's lifetime, a new term appears in the Egyptian language, Bayenpet, literally, iron from the sky. This hieroglyph was carved on the walls of temples. It appears in the pyramid texts and in the Book of the Dead. Metal that fell from the heavens was considered sacred. According to Egyptian beliefs, the sky was an enormous dome, forged by the gods from metal. The stars were openings in that dome, and meteorites were fragments of the sky itself, fallen to Earth. That's why meteoritic iron was not melted down for everyday objects. It was used only for the most sacred ritual items, for funerary rites, for the ceremony of the opening of the mouth, a ritual meant to revive the soul of the deceased pharaoh in the afterlife. In this ceremony, priests used a special instrument, an adze made of meteoritic iron. It was called peshesh kef. It was with this very instrument that they touched the lips, eyes, and ears of the mummy, so that the pharaoh could eat, see, and hear in the world of the dead. But there is yet another mystery, no less important. Meteoritic iron is an incredibly hard and brittle material. It contains a great deal of nickel, which makes it almost impossible to melt at the temperatures available in ancient times. The Egyptians could not melt it. This means there was only one way to work a piece of meteorite: by cold forging. This is an extremely difficult technology. The piece of metal is heated to a temperature of about 1000 degrees Celsius, the maximum that ancient forges could provide. Then it is struck with a hammer, then heated again, struck again. Thousands of strikes, hundreds of heatings. One mistake and the metal cracks. The quality of Tutankhamun's dagger is so high that modern blacksmiths, who have conducted experiments, admit such work cannot be done by chance. The master must have had many years of experience working specifically with meteoritic iron, which means this dagger is not the only one of its kind. Somewhere in ancient Egypt, there existed an entire school of masters who possessed a lost technology. Today, Tutankhamun's dagger is kept in the Grand Egyptian Museum in Cairo, opened just recently. Millions of tourists pass by its display case, unaware of what they are looking at. And what they are looking at is a piece of a star, a technology we still do not fully understand, a trace of a lost civilization that knew more about the cosmos than we think. And every time the light of a museum lamp reflects off that blade, it is not merely a glint. It is the echo of a star that died long before the birth of our planet. The story of Tutankhamun's dagger reminds us, the past knows how to surprise, and the more we learn, the more mysteries remain. What amazed you most in this story? The age of the metal, the lost school of masters, or the idea of a ticket to the stars? Be sure to write in the comments, let's discuss it together. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There are still many forgotten mysteries of the ancient world ahead, which we will solve together.